Hi Calvin, Tallulah. We're going to try something a little different this time. I'm going to hold the book a little further away, but between pages I'm going to hold the pictures up real close so you can see them. And hopefully that'll be a little bit more comfortable for Papa, and you'll be able to see me while I'm reading too. This is called St. George and the Dragon, and it's got some fantastic artwork, but you're going to see it a lot better when I hold those pictures up for you. In the days when monsters and giants and fairy folk lived in England, a noble knight was riding across a plain. He wore heavy armor and carried an ancient silver shield marked with the red cross. It was dented with the blows of many battles fought long ago by other brave knights. The Red Cross Knight had never yet faced a foe, and did not even know his name or where he had been born. But now he was bound on a great adventure, sent by the Queen of the Fairies to try his young strength against a deadly enemy, a dragon, grim and horrible. Beside him, on a little white donkey, rode a princess leading a white lamb, and behind her came a dwarf, carrying a small bundle of food. The lady's lovely face was veiled, and her shoulders were covered with a black cloak, as if she had a hidden sorrow in her heart. Her name was Una. You know, I look at this picture right now, and I think I see Calvin and Tallulah. There's a brave knight and a precious, darling little princess. The dreadful dragon was the cause of her sorrow. He was laying waste her land so that many frightened people had left their homes and run away. Others had shut themselves inside the walls of a castle with Una's father and her mother, the king and queen of the country. But Una had set out alone from the safety of the castle walls to look for a champion who would face the terrible dragon. She had traveled a long, long way before she found the Red Cross Knight. Like a sailor long at sea, under stormy winds and fierce sun, who begins to whistle merrily when he sees land, so Una was thankful. Now the travelers rode together through wild woods and wilderness, perils and dangers, toward Una's kingdom. The path they had to follow was straight and narrow, but not easy to see. Sometimes the Red Cross Knight rode too far ahead of Una and lost his way. Then she had to find him and guide him back to the path. So they journeyed on. With Una by his side, fair and faithful, no monster or giant could stand before the knight's bright sword. There they are, traveling along the path. They must be there. After many days, the path became thorny and led up to a steep hillside, where a good old hermit lived in a little house by himself. While Una rested, the Red Cross Knight climbed with the hermit to the top of the hill and looked out across the valley. There, against the evening sky, they saw a mountain top that touched the highest heavens. It was crowned with a glorious palace, sparkling like stars, encircled with walls and towers of pearls and precious stones. Joyful angels were coming and going between heaven and the high city. Then the Red Cross Knight saw that a little path led up the distant mountain to that city, and he said, "I thought that the fairest place in the world was the Crystal Tower in the city of the Fairy Queen. Now I see a palace far more lovely. Una and I should go there at once." But the old hermit said, "The Fairy Queen has sent you to do a brave deed in this world. That high city that you see is in another world. Before you climb the path to it and hang your shield on its wall, go down into the valley and fight the dragon that you were sent here to fight." There's the city up high, and there's George and the hermit looking down over the valley. It's time for me to tell you that you are not born of fairy folk, but of English earth. The fairies stole you away as a baby while you slept in your cradle. They hid you in a farmer's field, where a plowman found you. He called you George, which means plow the earth and fight the good fight, for you were born to be England's friend and patron saint, St. George of merry England. Then George, the Red Cross Knight, returned to Una, and when morning came, they went together down into the valley. They rode through farmlands where men and women working together in their fields looked up and cheered. because a champion had come to fight the dragon, and children clapped their hands to see the brave knight and the lovely lady ride by. "Now we've come to my own country," said Una. "Be on your guard. See, there's a city, and a great brass tower that my parents built strong enough to stand against the brassy-scaled dragon. There are my father and mother, looking out from the walls, and the watchman stands at the top, waiting to call out the good news if help is coming." See, there's the brass tower. She's pointing and showing George all the lands and the people, and everyone's clapping because George has arrived. This is the help they were waiting for. Then they heard a hideous roaring that filled the air with terror and seemed to shake the ground. The dreadful dragon lay stretched on the sunny side of a great hill, like a great hill himself. And when he saw the knight's armor glistening in the sunlight, he came eagerly to do battle. The knight bade his lady stand apart out of danger to watch the fight, while the beast drew near, half flying, half running. His great size made a wide shadow under his huge body, as a mountain casts a shadow on a valley. He reared high, monstrous, horrible, and vast, armed all over with scales of brass, fitted so closely that no sword or spear could pierce them. They clashed with every movement. The dragon's wings stretched out like two sails when the wind fills them. The clouds fled before him. His huge long tail, speckled red and black, wound in 100 folds over his scaly back and swept the land behind him for almost half a mile. In his tail's end 2 sharp stings were fixed, but sharper still were his cruel claws. Whatever he touched or drew within those claws was in deadly danger. His head was more hideous than tongue can tell, for his deep jaws gaped wide, showing 3 rows of iron teeth, ready to devour his prey. A cloud of smothering smoke and burning sulfur poured from his throat, filling the air with its stench. His blazing eyes, flaming with rage, glared out from deep in his head. So he came toward the knight, raising his speckled breast, clashing his scales as he leaped to greet his newest victim. That is one horrific dragon, isn't it? The knight on horseback fiercely rode at the dragon with all his might, and couched his spear, but as they passed, the pointed steel glanced off the dragon's hard hide. The wrathful beast, surprised at the strength of the blow, turned quickly, and passing the knight again, brushed him with his long tail, so that horse and man fell to the ground. Once more the Red Cross Knight mounted and attacked the dragon, once more in vain. Yet the beast had never before felt such a mighty stroke from the hand of any man, and he was furious for revenge. With his waving wings spread wide, he lifted himself high from the ground, then stooping low, snatched up both horse and man to carry them away. High above the plain he bore them as far as a bow can shoot an arrow, but even then the knight still struggled, until the monster was forced to lower his paws, so that the horse and rider fought free. With the strength of 3 men against the knight, again the knight struck. The spear glanced off the scaly neck, but it pierced the dragon's left wing. Spread broad above him, and the beast roared like a raging sea in a winter storm. Furious, he snatched the spear in his claws and broke it off, throwing forth flames of fire from his nostrils. Then he hurled his hideous tail about and wrapped it around the legs of the horse until, striving to loose the knot, the horse threw its rider to the ground. There he is, carrying him away. What's interesting is that these other panels, they show him riding together. They show the dragon spitting fire and wrapping his tail around the horse so that he throws St. George off his back.